So spoiler season is in full swing, and Wizards of the Coast has announced some cards that are coming strictly to theme boosters. Now, for those of you who don't know what theme boosters are, they're a way for you to get specific cards at specific rarities outside of a typical draft booster. It's not geared towards any sort of limited environment, and therefore the breakdown of cards that you can find inside is divvied up differently. Now, what's important about today's video is all of the spoiled cards come from theme boosters, which means you cannot get them in draft packs. These cards will not be used in limited play at all, either draft or sealed, but they are available for play in any constructed environment that Kaldheim would otherwise be legal in. So any kind of standard or legacy or historic, any kind of constructed format at all that Kaldheim is available for play in, these cards can be used in, which is really, really interesting. And some of these cards are actually really playable. They did theme boosters before, but usually they were very niche cards that didn't see play. And this time around, I think that's going to change. We're going to start with white. And here are two cards that are both working towards making angels viable. This is Youthful Valkyrie and Starnheim Aspirant. Now, Youthful Valkyrie is actually pretty good for an uncommon. We've got a 2-drop that's a 1/3 flyer, and whenever another angel enters the battlefield under your control, you put a +1/+1 counter on Youthful Valkyrie. This is the sort of card that would be great in Limited, but these cards aren't available for use in Limited, which makes it a little awkward. But still, I can see a world where this card is used in a mono-white rush deck or an angel-themed deck to really help curve out, and it can really get big over time, and having evasion makes it a pretty good card. I would definitely run this in any kind of angel-themed deck. And also, Starnheim Aspirant, this is a 2/2 for 3, reduces all angel spells you cast by 2 colorless mana. You could do things like play Legion Angel into another Legion Angel on turn 4, which seems like a really powerful play. This thing comes down for 3 mana. Legion Angel only costs 2 mana because it gets the 2 colorless mana cost reduction, and you have enough left over to play another Legion Angel that you fetched with the first Legion Angel. I could see a world where angels are really pushed, and constructed at least, and, you know, maybe you only have 1 Legion Angel in the sideboard and 3 in your main. That way, whichever Legion Angel you play first, you get that second one right away, and you increase the consistency of being able to pull a play like that off. But there are decent angels already in the environment, and I would not doubt we see many more interesting angels to come in Kaldheim. So these cards are pretty cool. Moving on, we've got War Chanter Skald. Now this is a 2/3 dwarf cleric for 3 mana total. Whenever War Chanter Skald becomes tapped, if it's enchanted or equipped, create a 2/1 red dwarf berserk creature token. Now, this is pretty interesting. It works really well with the dwarf we spoiled in yesterday's video. Being able to make a 2/1 red dwarf berserker creature token just by having this become tapped is pretty good. Again, if you have any abilities that can tap this without attacking with it, you still get the token creature. And this guy attacking and the tokens it makes attacking will generate treasure tokens with yesterday's Dwarf Lord that we spoiled. So there's definitely some really cool dwarf synergy. Again, this card seems like it would be best suited for Limited, which makes it a little bit awkward to be in theme boosters. But it's still interesting, and it's still good to see that the dwarf theme is really being fleshed out. Moving on, we've got, I believe, one more. We've got Armed and Armored. This is a 2-drop instant for 1 white and 1. Vehicles you control become artifact creatures until end of turn. Choose a dwarf you control, attach any number of equipment you control to it. Now what's cool about this card is it basically crews all of your vehicles for free for 1 turn, while also attaching all equipment you have to 1 dwarf. It's worth noting you can't choose to attach multiple equipments to different dwarves. All of your equipment needs to move to the 1 target dwarf. It does seem really interesting, being able to crew all your vehicles and attack with them while also attacking with all of your dwarves or whatever other creatures you might have is powerful. Not having to actually use your creatures to crew the vehicles, and instead also attacking with the creatures while also attacking with the vehicles, seems pretty nuts. Obviously, it depends if there are vehicles worth playing, and it depends how powerful the dwarf deck is, but a card like this could be really, really interesting. Next, we're going to move on to black. Now, black is going to continue the angel theme, which we'll get to in a minute, but first, we're going to talk about the Dark Elves. Now, the Dark Elves seem really interesting. We've got Thornmantle Striker, and then we've got Elderfang Ritualist. Now, Thornmantle Striker is a 5-drop. It's a 4/3 elf rogue. And when Thornmantle Striker enters the battlefield, you choose one. You can either remove X counters from target permanent, where X is the number of elves you control, or target creature an opponent controls gets -X until end of turn for each elf you control. Now, this card seems pretty cool. Obviously, it's only really abusable in elf decks, and I'm starting to see a trend here. They're really going in on tribes, and they want you to commit to a tribe, which seems slightly counterproductive to Zendakar's party theme that it brought about, but it isn't actually, and you'll see why in a bit when we get to green. But for now, Thornmantle Striker is really relying on elves to do a lot of work, and if you are playing it in an elf deck, you can kill a creature outright with this guy's Enter the Battlefield ability, or you can remove counters, which is really important. You can kill a Planeswalker if you have enough elves, because you can remove counters from the Planeswalker. And that makes it really, really cool. It's also a rogue, so I don't think rogues are going away anytime soon. The Elderfang Ritualist, on the other hand, this is a 3/1 for 3 mana. It's an elf cleric, and when Elderfang Ritualist dies, return another target elf card from your graveyard to your hand. Again, this works best if you're really pushing the elf theme, but it's interesting to note that it's a cleric, and it has a sacrificial ability. So if there are enough elf cards to really support the whole elf cleric sort of aristocrat kind of theme, then you could see an elf cleric deck really take off. I mean, this guy dies and triggers your typical aristocrat abilities while also bringing another elf back, or if you have a second one of these in the graveyard, bringing that back seems really cool. Let's move on. Next card I want to talk about is that angel I was talking about at first. Now, this is Renegade Reaper. This is a 2/3 angel berserker for 3 mana. It's a flyer, and when Renegade Reaper enters the battlefield, mill 4 cards. If at least one angel card is milled this way, you gain 4 life. So self-mill, the theme of self-mill is continuing, it looks like, and it's continuing in an angel or possibly berserker sort of tilt. You could see a card like this work with the typical Rakdos decks that use Kroxa, or any number of other cards that can benefit from self-mill. And there's some interesting decks popping up in Standard that involve self-mill, so it'd be cool to see if a card like this, and maybe other cards that Kaldheim brings, can sort of work to like cement a deck that focuses on self-mill as an actual viable option moving forward. It looks really, really cool. At the very least, the theme of Angel Berserkers seems really freaking awesome. Next up, we're going to talk about red. Now, red continues the dwarf theme and the vehicle theme, but it also introduces a giant theme, which seems really interesting. So first up, we're going to talk about Gilded Assault Cart and Bearded Axe. Now, Gilded Assault Cart is a 5/1 trample crew 2 artifact vehicle for 2 red and 1, so a total converted mana cost of 3. It has an ability where you can sacrifice 2 treasures to return Gilded Assault Cart from your graveyard to your hand. Now, this is really cool. It supports the treasure theme that we've seen happening already in red in Kaldheim. And it'll be really interesting to see how deep they go with that treasure theme, because depending on how deep they go, a card like this could be really, really good. Continually bringing it back, trading with a big creature, and then bringing it back again could be great. And also used with a card like Armed and Armored that we showed earlier in the video to crew it for free could be really powerful. It'll be interesting to see how the rest of this set pans out in regards to vehicles. And then Bearded Axe is a 3-drop equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each dwarf, equipment, and or vehicle you control, with an equip cost of 2. This could be cool. If the dwarf deck really takes off, or an equipment-themed deck, maybe a Boros deck centered around something like Nahiri from Zendikar, or similar cards to that, could really take off. We've already got Embercleave. Bearded Axe seems like in the right deck, it could really push those themes and maybe be really interesting. Moving on from that, we've got Fire Giant's Fury. Now, this is cool because this clearly points at there being a giant sub-theme in Kaldheim, and that's exciting. Realm Cloak Giant is still a card in Standard. Being able to play Cast Off and keep all your giants on the field seems like it'll be really good. So, if giants become a thing, it could be pretty crazy. But let's talk about this card. So Fire Giant's Fury is a 2-mana sorcery. Target giant you control gets +2/+2 and gains trample until end of turn. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player this turn, exile that many cards from the top of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. So what's interesting about this is the creature gains trample as well, which means they can't just chump block it and then prevent you from exiling a bunch of cards. They have to prevent every single point of damage that would come through from trample in order to prevent you from exiling cards from the top of your deck, which means you're sure to gain card advantage. Either they're piling up blockers to stop all the damage and you're killing multiple creatures with your one card, or they're letting it through for some damage and you're getting card advantage next turn in the form of these exiled cards that you can then play. So if giants are viable, this card seems pretty cool and it could do a lot of work. And again, like I said earlier about the white cards, it does seem like this card would be better in a limited environment, so it's a little bit weird here, but we'll have to wait and see how giants pan out until we decide how viable this card really is. It's time to talk about blue. We've got 2 cards today in the form of Giant's Grasp and Absorb Identity. Now, Giant's Grasp just further nails home the point that they're trying to make giants a sub-theme in this set. This is an enchantment aura for a converted mana cost of 4. It's 2 blue and 2 colorless. This is Enchant Giant you control. When Giant's Grasp enters the battlefield, gain control of target non-land permanent for as long as Giant's Grasp remains on the battlefield. This can be really powerful. We saw with Agent of Treachery that being able to gain control of any permanent through an enters the battlefield ability like this can be abusable. Now, because Giant's Grasp needs to stay in play, I don't think it's as abusable as Agent of Treachery, but it will be really interesting to see if there's a way to sort of abuse this with flicker effects, or maybe by moving the Giant's Grasp around onto other permanents. It seems like a really cool card. At the very least, you can be assured that giants are absolutely a thing, and it's going to be really cool moving forward to see what kind of giants we see come out of this and see if it's viable. The other card, Absorb Identity, is an instant for 2 mana. It says return target creature to its owner's hand. You may have shapeshifters you control become copies of that creature until end of turn. This confirms that shapeshifters are a supported subtype in Kaldheim. That's incredibly important because shapeshifters have the changeling ability. And changeling makes them every creature type, which means they are giants. If you're worried about your curve in a giant deck, which is usually the problem, at least with the giants we have so far, fill it with changelings. You're all set. But back to this card, Absorb Identity, seems pretty cool. If they target something of yours with removal, you could save it with this card and then make your shapeshifters become copies of it. If you're running a shapeshifter themed deck and you have a bunch of them in play, this could be really powerful. In fact, it could be really powerful to just have a few shapeshifters in play and then bounce their really good, really expensive creature and have them all become this huge, awesome creature. So it could be good. It could be good defensively, and it could also be good if you're being tricky with it and using it on your own creatures in an abusable way. It'll be interesting to see see where else we can go with this with the rest of the cards in the set. Next up is green, and in green we're seeing Gladewalker Ritualist and Elven Ambush. Now, I don't want to wait any longer to talk about Gladewalker Ritualist, because this card seems really cool. This is a 3-drop, that's a 3/3 creature shapeshifter. Has the Changeling ability. Whenever another creature named Gladewalker Ritualist enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. Oh my goodness. Imagine this with the card we were just talking about, Absorb Identity. So if you have a bunch of shapeshifters in play, you return this guy to your hand, they all become Gladewalker Ritualists, and then you play the Gladewalker Ritualist that you just returned to your hand, and every single one of them makes you draw a card. That's crazy. But even more so than that, just the idea of using this with other copy effects. You could play a Gladewalker Ritualist, play any kind of clone effect to make another one, and draw a card off of it. And then if you draw into a second Gladewalker Ritualist or a second clone effect, you can then make another one and both will trigger and you'll draw 2 cards. And then if you draw into another one and play it, you'll draw 3 cards, and it can get really out of hand. So it'll be interesting to see if the Shapeshifter deck is a thing. At the very least, Changeling for sure is going to make a huge impact. Being able to contribute all of these Shapeshifters to any of these tribes that we see pushed pretty hard, as well as the concept of the party theme, which if you're running a bunch of Changelings with party payoff from Zendikar, oh my goodness, like you don't even have to worry about having the right creatures in play. You just have a bunch of Shapeshifters that have Changeling, and they're every creature type. So instead of needing 4 specific creatures to trigger party abilities, or to trigger full party abilities at least, you just have 4 Shapeshifters? Shapeshifters seem pretty cool. They seem pretty powerful. I'm excited to see more of these for sure. The other card, Elven Ambush, is an instant for 4 mana. Create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token for each elf you control. This is cool. Obviously, again, it's pushing really hard into the tribal theme with elves. But since it's an instant, you can do some really cool stuff with it. So if you had like a double vision in play and you played this, the first one would double your tokens. You get a copy from double vision, and then you double the doubled tokens. So you basically quadruple your tokens. And that seems pretty nuts. But elves for sure are absolutely going to be pushed, and tribes are going to be pushed, and this secures that concept for sure. The last card of this video is also the only multicolor uncommon revealed as one of the cards in these theme boosters, and that is Rampage of the Valkyries. Now, Rampage of the Valkyries looks really, really cool. 1 black, 1 white, and 3 colorless, so a total of 5 converted mana costs for an enchantment. When Rampage of the Valkyries enters the battlefield, create a 4/4 white angel token with flying and vigilance. Whenever an angel you control dies, each other player sacrifices a creature. So the most obvious use for this card is obviously in the angel deck. Play this, play a bunch of angels. All of your angels have built-in protection where you're going to beat them out through attrition if they're trying to kill your creatures. Every angel they take out, they have to get rid of one of their creatures. The only way to really get around this is to kill, or destroy rather, the Rampage of the Valkyries outright. Or if you're playing maybe like a creatureless control deck, you can kind of get around some of this. But what's really interesting about Rampage of the Valkyries is using it not even necessarily in an angel deck. We've already seen Doom Foretold decks, especially Yorion versions of Doom Foretold decks, do really well in the current standard environment. Adding a card like this into the mix really ups the ante. You can drop this on turn 5, make a 4/4 angel, and then have it stick around as something you can sacrifice to the Doom Foretold. Or, if you play your Yorion, you can flicker the Rampage of the Valkyries, and when it comes back into play, you make another angel. And it's still there to trigger its abilities if they try to remove your angels with their removal. So I feel like this could be really useful in a lot of decks. I don't think Yorion Doom Foretold decks really needed another tool, but here we go. It's here. Angels look freaking awesome. I'm excited to see the rest of them. I've got another video coming up with the rares from the theme boosters. And we'll be going over those really quick. There's one for each color. So make sure to stay tuned for that. And there'll be plenty of spoilers coming. So stay tuned. Give this video a like. Maybe share it. Make sure to subscribe because it really helps out the channel. And we'll see you next time.